So what are you working on now that gives you hope for the future?
Why are you asking me difficult questions? That's a big, difficult question. Hope for the future. Honestly, my podcast is something that I didn't know that I really wanted to do. And I knew I wanted to have conversations, which this is why I'm so grateful that you asked me to come here, because it's so rare to be able to have a conversation in my previous life in 30 years of, you know.
Yeah, because you don't get to spread your wings when you're working in 30-second increments.
You don't get to follow up.
Yeah, and you don't realize how important that is.
Exactly. And that's what gives me hope, is because that is what is missing. So you doing this, and Tyrus, and everybody who's trying to have a conversation, that was my goal from day one. I just didn't want to like manage it. I didn't want to be an entrepreneur. Now I'm like, oh, I have to do this. Like if I want the independence to talk to whoever I want about whatever and be honest and genuine with my own opinions, what does that mean? Then I have to do it by myself. And so difficult learning, major learning curve for me. That's not my lane. But I have hope that the more we can be kind while having conversations, like we're gonna still be America. We're still gonna be okay. I do think there's so much more good than bad, just like we're talking about New York City. So much more good if we choose to find it and choose to talk and continue to listen. What a concept. Even while having, 3-minute interviews on live TV, like you still have to listen. And maybe you change course from what your scripted next question was going to be, because you're listening.
But isn't that where the best stuff comes from?
Absolutely.
Yes.
It absolutely is. But I say this to my kids all the time, and I try to remind myself at moments where I get frustrated. Like when we're hateful or judgmental about someone's opinion, we are forgetting that opinions are shaped by our own personal experiences. So it's like, why would she say that? Why would he? Okay, wait, how about ask the real why and understand, even if you disagree, you got to respect where they're coming from. And when we can get there by having conversations on all of our shows, that's what gives me hope. And so I'm not going to quit. And listen, there's a lot of hate that obviously comes with it when you go there with people and wait, you platform that person. I'm like, what does that even mean? Stop. We're talking.
Yeah.
And yes, I'm different and I have a different opinion than that person, but I still respect them.
Yes, because you never know what someone has been through.
Yes.
You never know how, things like trauma and fear and abandonment shape someone's worldview.
Yes.
And, when you have curiosity, then you can find common ground. And when you find common ground, it's a lot easier to change someone's mind if they're not on the defensive.
We have so much more in common with those on the other side of whatever than I think we realize. Then I think sometimes we want to realize. Yeah. You want to find a reason to keep hating them or keep ripping on them on social media, whatever it is.
I don't hate them. I love them all unless they went to USC.
Listen, we have to draw the line somewhere. And last thing, working on, I said it sounds so cheesy, Kennedy, but I'm a newlywed. I didn't think I'd get another chance at this.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping I'm being a good example to my kiddos who are 23, 21, 19, to never give up on that.
Yes.
For us women and men to never lower your bar and your standards, and to be vulnerable. Talk about it. Be okay. Talk about our failures. I have a lot of failures and things that my kids are now old enough to see and understand, and maybe, hopefully, be better.
Yes.
Be better than I was. Don't take 50 years to truly believe in yourself and let go and be vulnerable and give things like that, whether it's professionally or personally, a chance again,
Amen. So beautifully said.
I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry here.
Well, you give me so much hope, and I love it. And I love, sports, people who get into broadcasting through sports are always my favorite people, because there's so much you have to know and jam into your brain, and it's so much more difficult. People who consume news are rarely more knowledgeable than the people who are
presenting it and
reporting, presenting, anchoring. They can be, but in sports, everyone who's watching you is an absolute expert. And what you have to overcome in terms of presentation and knowledge is amazing. And I feel like if you can do sports, you can do anything.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that as someone who was fortunate enough to make it, but humbly, because it was such a struggle for me. The way my brain works, like I lived in constant fear of being exposed for like ADD and lack of being able to retain things. And am I going to be able to spew out that random stat, on live to be at the perfect moment and not screwed up or just have, a total brain fart. I will say I don't really miss it. Mm-hmm. I would rather have this conversation about sports now and NIL and dive deep on whatever it is. I didn't realize how much pressure that I put on myself, for 30 years to know every stat about every player and every team at every moment and all the leagues.
What are your nightmares? What are your work nightmares? Like, what is that? Is your work nightmare that you're back on ESPN and your mind goes blank and they go to you and they're like, Sage, what's the stat on,
fill in the blank, anything. Yeah.
4th down conversions for this team in the third quarter?
My recurring nightmare my entire career is that I slept through my alarm.
Yeah.
And because you don't just say, oh, I'll be right there. And you put, oh no.
Yeah.
You can't just do that. And yeah, that was my recurring nightmare. I still have that. And then I wake up laughing. I'm like, ha ha ha. I don't have to listen to anybody anymore. But I think that pressure, I also thrived in that environment where if you don't know, and especially graduating from college in 95, there were so few women and you were totally judged coming into that locker room. So I felt like my questions had to be 10 times better than every man and that I was in that scrum with. And you know what? They usually were.
Yeah.
Because I was so afraid of failure that I over-prepared and listened. A lot of men reporters that I know during my time, I'm sure it's great now, like they would have their questions lined up and they would ask it and then go on to the next. They didn't listen to the answer and then react to that. And the players knew it. They felt it. So I ended up, I think, benefiting, from what we bring as women quite often, maybe that sensitivity.
That's a natural empathy.
It is.
And people can sense that.
Yeah.
Because you can tell when someone's asking you a question, their eyes glaze because they're not listening because they're thinking about their next thing.
Correct.
Like, that's not fun for anyone to be in that situation. But when someone's leaning in and they're prepared and they're listening, like, you could take that, not just in broadcasting, but you can take that and apply that to pretty much any profession.
You should.
And find success with that.
Yes. Yeah. But I honestly, they forget that they're humans. That the media forgets that these, in the NFL or college football, these men are human. And yeah, do you think he wanted to fumble on the 2-yard line and lose the game for his team, essentially? Of course he didn't want to. Mm-hmm. So you're going to, there's a way you have to ask certain questions, but let's do it with empathy, strength, be concise. And if you've built those relationships too, where they know that you're not just going to come to them when it's bad. We're not going to I'm going to talk to you when it's good too.
Yes.
That matters. And I believe you get more from whoever you're having interviewing, which means what? The viewers win.
Yes.
The fans win. And that is our job. And I think they've forgotten about that in the sports space a lot over the past several years.
Yes, because when you can take a fan and have them go, oh, that was a great question. I never would have thought of that.
Yes. Or
as opposed to them screaming at the TV like, ask him this, ask him this.
Yes. Or like, I'm so glad. Yes, I was thinking that too.
Yeah.
She asked that question. Like, that's where I would thrive after. And if I'm on the street or at the grocery store or whatever, when you asked him, I was like, yeah, because you work hard to make sure you're asking the right questions. It's not about me. This is long before clicks too, and after clicks were a thing in the internet. But like, my job is to be the liaison between the athletes, the coaches, the teams, and the fans. Yeah. And what a blessing to get to do that. That childhood dream I had, but like, especially, it's everywhere. And unfortunately, we've given ourselves their self-inflicted wounds sometimes, I think, with lack of credibility and professionalism, et cetera, where, people don't look to us. I say us as if I'm still a sportscaster, but, the same way as they used to back in the day.
Once a cop, always a cop,
Okay. Okay.
It's the same thing with sportscasting.
Yeah, it is, damn it. And that's how, I hear that so often too. I loved you on ESPN or I miss you. And sure, the ego.
I'm sure there are a lot of people who still think you're on ESPN.
Oh, for sure. Which cracks you up, right? Too. Yeah. I watch you on MTV and you're like,
yeah.
It's cute.
Do you?
Thank you. Thank you. And just leave it alone.
Yeah. 20 years later, it's like, are you still on MTV? And I was go, yeah, I am. Obviously.
You missed my show last night. Shame on you. But it's all a blessing, right? Yeah. It gets us to today. But like, I would never have dreamt of getting to talk to you And to talk about things that we actually care about.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
I know, but that's the great thing about being in your 50s.
That's the other part where now I don't care.
Exactly.
I don't care.
It's the most
if you
freeing
hate me.
and wonderful thing in the world.
Why does it take us so long?
I don't know. I wish it didn't. And I think that's kind of our job as moms.
Yeah.
To try and instill that in our kids. And like you were talking about, try and get them to not be ruled by fear and fear of failure. Because it takes a while. It takes a few decades before you've had enough things work out to realize that things work themselves out. Like things always find a way.
Always.